This is an ode to Baker Creek. Ode to Baker Creek. Your seeds are on fleek. You made me a seed geek, made my coolness peak. Seed mail as we speak. Ode, 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 ode to Baker Creek.
I said I wasn't going to do it, but then I did it. Yes, I did. This is a Baker Creek seed order. Let's see what we've got in here. And I love the packaging. Isn't this cute? The rooster with all the little baby chicks. I love it. So sweet. So let's see what I got here. Yes, I'm smiling and I've got seeds. Oh my. The first packet here I got here is Chrysanthemum. Partially because of the name right here. I'm not going to try to say that because I don't want to be blocked on YouTube. Oh my goodness, you guys. Okay. So, you know the Chrysanthemum, one of the varieties is called chop suey, or is used like that. So that's something to think about if you are looking for some kind of interesting greens. So this one is edible. It's an edible chrysanthemum. It holds a treasured place in Japanese cuisine where the brightly flavored leaves and lightly sweet shoots can be boiled, pickled, stir-fried, or tossed raw into salads. And we're sowing them in place, so not transplanting them, in rich, moist, well-drained soil. Harvest leaves when plants are about a foot tall or gather new growth. They'll make very attractive daisy-like flowers. And they're very lovely. I grew a different variety last year and the year before. I do have some popping up here and there. I'm starting to lose track of what's what, and I really need to be better at labeling everything, especially things that are new to my garden. But I'm definitely going to be growing these. I wonder how long they take. Let's look at the information on the side of the packet. So they sprout in about 2 weeks, a week and a half to 2 weeks. They like 65 to 70 degree temperature, 1/4 inch deep, 1/2 foot to 1.5 foot apart. They're not frost hardy. So this is probably going to be for next year. Also, I wanted to note that when you get seed packets and they have the date information, like this information up here on the top is actually legally required. Some seed companies do not include it. The information that's legal is that they have to have a lot number. That's so that if there's a problem with germination rates, you can report it and you say this is the lot number, and then they would check it because they might have, 2 or 3 or 4 different lots of the same kind of plant, and then they will know which ones had the germination issues or which ones they need to recheck. And if you have germination issues, it could be because the seed sat in your mailbox on a hot day and got fried, basically. So it's not necessarily their fault. So if you gave them the lot number, they could go back and check them. And then if they have high germination rates, they can continue to sell them. So you have to tell them that information. It was packed for 2027 and its sell by date is December 2027. So, and this date here is basically the law is that a company, when they have to do germination tests. After that germination test comes out and they have the information to give you 80% germination rate, 90% purity, whatever, then you have 9 to 12 months to sell those seeds, right? Or they do. And after that, then they have to test those seeds again to make sure that they're still good. So they would go back to that lot number and they would test those seeds again. And if they're still high per germination rate, they'll continue to sell them. But they'll have to change the packaging information if the germination rates have changed. So if they went from 95% germination rate down to 85, the new packets that they print have to say that. So that is that information. And people misunderstand and they throw away their seeds. And it's not like expired rotting food, you guys. At the very least, throw them in the soil, plant them like you would, maybe plant more than you would but it's still, most of the seeds are going to be viable. I have planted seeds that, of different varieties of plants. Some don't last as long. But some plants will last decades. Some plants last longer than that. But the rate does go down. Certain varieties are need to be rotated more frequently. One thing I would say is if you have a ton of seeds on your hands, like seeds on your hands, if you have a ton of seeds that you're just like kind of holding on to and you know you're never going to get to plant them, see if your local library has a seed library and if you can donate them. And if not, contact your local food bank and ask them if they would take seed donations. That's a way to get them out into the community where people can actually benefit from the seeds that you are not going to get to use. And don't forget to seed save. My next variety is called Goji berry and it's Scarlet. When I was a little girl, I used to watch Gone with the Wind a lot because I loved the dresses. And I like when I was little, I used to put on a dress and I'd like twirl around and be like, look at my dress, it twirls, right? And so these big poofy dresses, I just thought they were so pretty. And I really didn't get what was going on in the movie. I just really was interested in the dresses. And it's called Scarlet. So I was like, oh, okay, that's really cute for the name. And it's because of the color, obviously, not because of Scarlett O'Hara. I just love those dresses, you guys. The idea of taking like something like the curtains that they had and making them into her big poofy dress. I thought that was adorable. So 2 years to maturity. So patience, y'all, patience. Chinese native, hardy perennial shrub. By the way, a lot of Chinese natives do very well in the Pacific Northwest. So do your own research. And that does mean like, you know, you might grow something and it might grow a little bit too well and those things become weeds. Because the whole idea of weeds being what people don't want to grow. If my outcompete native stuff, but if it's on your own property or in a pot, just be cautious of the different plants that you're growing, especially if they're perennial or if they're self-seeding. Chinese native, 6.5 to 13 feet high. From June to September, the shrub is decorated with pale violet fragrant flowers, a superfruit with a host of traditional uses. So look at these figs, y'all. We're taking a quick break from the Baker Creek seed order to show off my fig tree. Got other fig trees too, but this one is by far the most productive and it has so many figs. It is loaded, all various stages. Look at that. And the little tiny ones. You gotta get some perennials into your garden, because even when I, had surgery and the infection, hospitalized and everything, while the annuals were being neglected and dying off, my perennials are a mainstay. Up here is another grapevine. So you've probably seen like my archway in the front. In many of my videos, but this one here is another variety of grape, and honestly I don't know what it is because I planted it so long ago, but there are grapes up here. If I can find, oh, there's some grapes right there. The ones in the front are by far the most loaded. These are nice. I actually just went to a farmer's market the other day and got another variety of grape from Hammersley Inlet. Hammersley Inlet. I don't know if they still have people coming out to their nursery, but I did see them at the Olympia Farmers Market last weekend, so check them out. There are so many grapes on this arbor, and they taste like pomegranate. Yum! Alright, next up we have common thyme. I'm sure I have plenty, but I don't know what variety I have, and I want to have all the varieties. This is just common thyme, which one reason why I want common varieties is because in my personal experience, the less cultivated, the easier they grow, like just wild, like weeds. So that's why I'm going to have some common thyme. I know I have lemon thyme, but let's get back to some actual basics. And so this is going to be a perennial for sure. And it's a tender perennial, which means if it gets too cold, it's not going to be you know, super tolerant, but my experience with thyme in Washington State, it's a winter. It says it's not winter hardy. In my experience with my lemon thyme, it does stay, I'd say, green all year, but it kind of gets a woody, like the leaves even get a little bit, like, I don't want to say dry, but it doesn't taste fresh. But if you need some spices all year long, I basically go out into my garden and I'm taking little sprigs of this and that. And, you know, you can simulate drying your herbs using your stove or like a food. I can't think of words. Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about. So if I glitch and don't remember something, you can pop a comment because you know, words. So this is sell by date of December 31st of not this year, next year, which is interesting since everything I have researched says that with seed companies, you have 9 to 12 months to sell your seeds from the time that you have done your germination test. Now, this is a perennial, and seed saving is not easy, you guys, with certain, like, I shouldn't say fast. It's not fast. Seed saving is easy if it's for yourself. But if you're seed saving to sell seeds, you have to have, like, you know, business licenses, all that stuff. The IRS will get its chunk of meat for sure. But if you're trying to sell seeds, there's a bunch of regulations, a bunch of rules. What I've come across for Washington State is 9 to 12 months, depending on, well, you can sell them again after you do another germination test. So, like, if you have these seeds and you were selling them, you had your own company, whatever, this would probably, let's say it was expiring in 2026. Well, you would just plant some of those seeds again, and you would see what the germination rate is. And then you'd have to repackage it with a new tested date, sell by date. That's your choice. You can do tested on this date or sell by this date. I'm wondering if maybe there's some, pop a comment below if you know the rules, but is there a different set of rules for perennials? Because the rules I found all seem to be about annuals. Like, it will tell you, broccoli and this and this and this have to have this germination rate, blah, blah, blah. But I haven't seen anything specifically about perennials. I never saw thyme on the list. And so whatever I've been doing for my small company, very, very small, very, very new, I've been going with the strictest rules on everything. So, like, if they're on the list, I follow the rule. And if they're not on the list, I go with the strictest rule that it's on there. So that's just kind of how I roll. And yeah, I'm not very nice to myself, but thyme is great. And it's time to move on to another seed packet. Hello, Petunia. Oh, that's such a cute, I don't know. It's such a cute arrangement. I love how they do their seed packets, the photography. It always is staged so nicely. I wonder what the lemons is about. Let's take a look. When I see that there, and I see the herbs, and I see that liquid here, I'm thinking, could it be useful in some way? So this is Superbissima Giant Rose. Did I say that right? Bissima? Superbissima? Bissima. Okay, well, I don't know. Giant Rose Petunia. It is super. And this one here, see how it has a sticker here? They're allowed to do this. This kind of sticker is what happens is when, like, you have seeds that some are good for many years. Some seeds have to be used right away. It depends on the variety of the plant. So this type of plant can last for more than one season. And what they have to do, either there's a misprint on the label and they're not wasting these expensive packets, or they retested it, right? And then they have the sell by date. So then they have a lot number. And if you are telling them, like, oh, these seeds didn't germinate well, you tell them the lot number so that they don't, like, throw away something brand new. Because while they have one batch going out, they probably have another batch coming in. and they have a rotation, just like you should have with your pantry. So here he says, gargantuan lavender to rose-colored blooms with deeply ruffled edges will have you wondering if this is actually a petunia. Blooms reach almost 7 inches across and are sweetly scented and cherry flavored. What? This mammoth edible petunia looks stunning in any garden. So don't just go around eating your flowers, you guys, but make sure you label things properly and you identify things properly. And then you go back and you double check, because I don't want anyone getting sick. But this is an edible flower. Excellent. Now, whenever it says edible, make sure you do your research on every different kind of food, flower, landscape plant that you're eating. Because sometimes certain plants, like, it's a part that's edible. For example, saffron crocus, it's just the stamen. Or, you can eat the calyx of roselles. Sometimes it's just the petals. Sometimes it's just the stamen. Sometimes it's just the calyx. Sometimes it's, whatever. So make sure you do your own research. But it says it's an edible flower. And it doesn't mean, when it says an edible, if a flower is edible, sometimes it's the flower itself. Sometimes it's the stalks, stems, everything above the ground. Sometimes it's not. So double check. Okay, and I will definitely, when I have flowers blooming, I'm going to double check as well. And I oftentimes, even if it's like that, there's that channel, Robbie and Gary, Growing Made Easy or Growing Made Simple. If you know if it's easy or simple, can you comment below? Because I always get it wrong. Anyway, that channel, she always says at the end of her videos, don't forget to eat what you grow. And my friend, the gardening artist, Reba, the gardening artist, check out her channel, Reba, the gardening artist, REBA. Her and I were talking the other day about how sometimes we don't always eat what we grow. And it just happens to be the plant has its whole life cycle. It goes from beginning to end. You plant it from a seed, it sprouts, it grows into this beautiful plant. You don't eat it, then it goes to seed, it dies, the seeds go into the ground. That's not the end of the world. Sometimes we get little volunteer plants everywhere. But remember, we are gardening for many reasons. One of the reasons is to enjoy planting it, and then when you see the magic, it's almost like magic of it growing. And I always thank God. I'm like, thank God for every little living organism on the planet. It's just amazing. But when you're planting something that is edible or useful, try to use it. Maybe even just have a goal of every year, every time you try growing something new, if it's edible, make sure that you use that thing that year. Use some of it. Everything that you grow that's useful or edible, use some of it every season that it grows. So that way you're actually, getting into the habit and recognizing it as food. It's like we don't need to have a barcode on something or have it wrapped in plastic for it to be food. So I think that's one of the reasons why we really struggle to eat what we're growing, because we see it, and we see it as a plant, and we see it as a living organism. And sometimes we don't realize I'm a living organism, and that's something I'm supposed to have, right? So don't forget to eat what you grow, like Robbie says. This is supposed to be surface sown, which means you're just sprinkling it on top. Now, even when I'm surface sowing, I like to either mist it in, or I'll tap it in with my fingers just gently and then rinse my finger off over the soil, because sometimes the seeds stick to your fingers. Because you want the seeds to be in contact with the soil, right? When it feels the moisture and it feels where the soil is, it feels where the sunlight is, it knows which way the roots can grow down and the stems and leaves can grow upwards. But that contact is important. Sometimes the seeds will kind of sit above the soil a little bit, and then they dry out and die. So you do want them to have contact with the soil. And you're starting them indoors 8 to 10 weeks. So even though I just bought these, and they are technically allowed to sell them to this date, this is not an expiration date. Please do not confuse that with expiration date. That is when they have to sell it by, because basically the government wants to know that people aren't selling you old seeds, so that you actually get high germination rate. So they can sell it till after Christmas, but you're planting it in the before spring, actually, because you're planting it indoors 8 to 10 weeks. So that's I would round up and say, you know, if it says 8 to 10 weeks for me and I'm in Washington State, I'm going to go with 10 weeks. So May 10th is my first frost-ish, you know, so that will be the, you know, I'll count that as the 2 weeks and then go all of April, all of March. So I'm planting this the end of February, okay? So end of February, mid to end of February, and I'm going to have this growing inside. Which means I'm going to be growing it with a little humidity dome. Probably do some, actually I'm probably going to do them all on a heat mat, to be quite honest with you. And you're setting them after the frost. So I usually do after my birthday, which is towards the end of May, when I'm sending things out after the last frost. Or I'll do like a little bit of hardening off, where I'll put a tray of plants outside during the daytime, and then I'll bring them back inside for a week or so, maybe sometimes longer than that. I'll go, you know, outside and then bring them back inside, or I'll put them outside and then put them inside, and then the last week I'll go outside and then into a greenhouse, or with some kind of protection, and then after that, then with no protection, and then direct putting them into the soil outside. So that's kind of like, I kind of baby them in that way if I'm starting them inside, because there's a lot of shock. And if you experience, when you're going to like a nursery or whatever, if you're experiencing like you get your plants home and then they just die, it's because, you know, in a greenhouse, they are being treated like little babies, and all of a sudden now they have their own apartment and they're cooking for themselves and they're washing their own laundry and everything turned pink. So you don't want to do that to your little petunia. And little petunia. Pinching young shoots makes for a more compact habit. So if you want it to like be more bushy and like spread out, then you are pinching the shoots. But if you don't want to do that, then don't. Right? So that's beautiful. It's kind of ruffly. Love it. Let's see what's next. Next up, we have Yarrow, Double Diamond Pearl. And I am so happy because I have some Yarrow growing out in my garden now. And it is just absolutely lovely. And I've noticed that the pollinators just absolutely love Yarrow, especially the hoverflies. Don't mistake hoverflies as like a pest in the garden. They're actually very, very helpful as pollinators. And it sounds kind of gross, but hoverflies come from rat tail maggot. So if you have stagnant water, and you see like a long, looks like a maggot, and then it has a tail. It looks like a tail. It's not a tail. It's a snorkel. It's a snorkel. Isn't that cool? So it looks like a little white worm, and then it has like this little skinny snorkel, and it will wrap around something like a piece of grass or something that's sticking out of the water, so it can breathe underwater. It's a lot bigger than like a mosquito larva. So it's easy to tell them apart, but they often live in the same water. So I often will dump buckets of water. Like I actually will fill them up with water. And then when I see the larva of the mosquitoes, I dump them out on my plants on purpose. That's how I break the life cycle of the mosquitoes. But what I want to do for the rat tail maggot is I'm going to just transfer them to something else because I don't want to kill them. They're actually very beneficial, like I said. So they look absolutely disgusting. I'll be honest. I think all living things are beautiful, but rat tail maggots are pretty nasty looking. Even mosquito larvae look okay, but they look like little aliens in the water wiggling around. But the rat tail maggot is disgusting. But they are so awesome when they are hoverflies. So don't kill them if you can help it. They like nutrient-rich water. So like if you have like soil in a pot and that pot fills up with water and it's like muddy, that's what they like. And that snorkel allows them to breathe in that disgusting water. So you'll see more of them in pots that don't have drainage holes. And they're fine. And you can actually see them inch out of a container when they need to. It's kind of gross, but also really awesome. But I've seen the reason I mention it is because I've seen lots of hoverflies pollinating my yarrow, and they are very beneficial. They're very tiny, so they can get to all the little flowers. And this looks like a big flower, but if you get closer, it's like lots and lots of little flowers. And so this looks a lot different than my normal yarrow, which is more of like clusters like this without the bigger petals. So this is more of a cultivated variety, double diamond pearl. And so what does it say about this? Should be perennial. I love perennials because they are easy peasy, you guys. When I was not doing well, still recovering from my surgery, but coming back to so many dead annuals, it was so nice to see the perennials coming back in full force like I was never gone. So it's awesome. These are also pretty reasonably priced, only $3 for 300 seeds. And sometimes you'll get deals and stuff. Like if you look at, check out Emma Gardner. The end of the year deals that he does are pretty sweet. Like sometimes Baker Creek will do like a deal too, where it's like they'll have like a weekend sale or a couple days where they have a sale and the prices are really crazy, or you'll get extra free packets if you buy a bunch of seeds, because they're trying to sell before the end of that date, because if they don't, they have to retest the seeds, put another sticker on them, and then they can sell them, continue selling them as long as they have a good germination rate. But I basically have explained that many times now. So perennial in zones 3 through 10. I'm zone 8. I have common yarrow. It was popular in the Victorian era. I actually have I think I just bought for my store, because I'm starting, like I said, a little store. I'm not selling these little special varieties I bought for myself. I'm buying in bulk, and not what you would consider bulk, like what the government considers bulk. What I consider as bulk is be like 5-10 pounds of one kind of seed is bulk for me. Bulk for business purposes is like shovels full, like way more than what I buy. So I'm very, very small scale. But I bought a Western yarrow, which is more native to my region. So I thought that would be great, because even though these are all, great to grow, they're great for the pollinators, it's also nice to have some stuff that is supposed to be where you are. So this is a relative of common yarrow. It was popular during the Victorian era. Well, that makes sense, because that looks like lace to me. It's like getting all fancy, guys, with this Victorian era. Don't get me started on genealogy, or I'll talk to you about how my relative was secretary to Queen Victoria for 25 years or more than that. It was like the longest. Henry Ponsonby was like the longest serving secretary to Queen Victoria, and I'm from the Ponsonby line, so that's kind of cool. Highly ornamental herb. They did not give me any money. Ah, man, that whole inheritance goes to the oldest son thing, and you have to be legitimate or something, that didn't work out for my family. Okay, so it's a medicinal plant. I haven't used medicinally. If you have used yarrow medicinally, make a comment below. I'm always seeing YouTube videos about people using the leaves. Sometimes they'll dry it or they'll use it fresh. I've seen lots of people talking about packing wounds with it, for like in the olden days that people would do that. Now, I just had MRSA, so I'm not packing my MRSA infected wound with yarrow. I don't have MRSA anymore. I had all the antibiotics that stripped my body of all the good things and all the bad things, and so my body is going to take a long time to heal. The surgery itself did not destroy me as bad as the infection did, and all of the antibiotics to get rid of the infection. So it was pretty gnarly. I almost lost my leg. They were going to amputate my foot if it didn't start responding to the vanco desiccant type of antibiotic. So if that didn't work, they were going to cut off my foot from the ankle down. So that would have been horrific. So thank you, Lord Jesus, that I have 2 feet. Even if I'm limping, I am very grateful to not be an amputee. But yarrow, on that point, It would be like SHTF, you know, like you have nothing else available to you and you're using Yarrow. Apparently it's supposed to help blood clotting. Now, I wouldn't be probably using it because I have factor V Leiden, which is a blood clotting disorder. And so I don't want too many clots because then you can get a pulmonary embolism. TMI, too much information. So, yeah, that's a thing. So, probably got, you know, now that I'm thinking about talking about like genealogy, you know, a lot of the royal lines had hemophilia, which is a bleeding disorder. Factor V Leiden is a clotting disorder, which is a bleeding disorder. I remember being a kid and bleeding, and then coughing up a blood clot that was like giant. It was horrible. So there are signs that I had that when I was a kid and just totally ignored it. They think they tested me for hemophilia when I was hospitalized when I was about 8 or 9. They didn't test me for factor V Leiden. I don't know if they knew about it. So, interesting. But Yarrow, yeah, Yarrow has been used as like a poultice or to treat wounds that are bleeding, to stop clotting, for a very, very long time. Probably thousands of years. If you know a lot about Yarrow, pop a comment below. I know what I know from binge watching YouTube videos, just like you. Yes. So, I haven't used it directly, and especially with it having that clotting benefit. It's only a benefit to somebody who needs clots. I don't need them. I have plenty. Yes, they actually had me on blood thinners, which is very odd from usually when you're having surgeries and stuff like that, because you don't want your blood to be thin, because then you'll just bleed and bleed and bleed. But if you have random clots that dislodge, then it's dangerous. So be careful when you're doing like all this kind of really cool, like having your own herbal gardens. Make sure that you like check with a pharmacist. I'm always researching. I do look at all those home remedies and all that, but always look at the contraindications. How do these different things affect other things during different conditions that you might have, or that your family members might have, or if you're taking medications, how might it affect? Because natural remedies and herbs are very powerful. Pharmaceutical companies should be very wary that herbs could put them out of business. But like if you look at just grapefruit is very has a really big effect against blood pressure medications. So, you know, I don't know that there's any money in it, but somebody could do an experiment, like double-blind study, scientific study on grapefruit and how does it affect blood pressure. I'll tell you this much: if I had high blood pressure, I would be stocked up on grapefruit extract, like the pills, in case SHTF ever happened and I didn't have blood pressure medication. I would take that instead. I wouldn't do that now when it's available, but if SHTF happened and somebody has high blood pressure, my mom had a friend who couldn't afford her blood pressure medication, didn't tell anybody, went to bed one night and didn't wake up in the morning. Just like that's, you know, that song, you know, he bumped his head, you know, didn't wake up in the morning. So, yeah, it's no joke. People, be careful. A lot of people on YouTube overstate like their expertise, and they should be more honest about it, because you might watch a really good video and think, oh my gosh, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to stuff my wound full of Yarrow. Well, did a dog just take a crap on it a minute earlier? Sorry. Is it clean? Is it clean? You're packing something into a wound. You know, when people chew stuff up and then stick it on their wounds, I just can't do that. No, you can still mash it up with water and not chew on it with your dirty mouth. Yeah, so one thing I wanted to say about like how people use poultices and stuff. A lot of times people will talk about like chewing something up, like plantain. They'll chew up plantain leaves, not the banana type of plantain, like the weed. So the common plantain, narrow leaf, broadleaf plantain. Plantago major. So they'll chew it up and they'll put it on a wound. If I didn't have to chew it up, I would just mash it up with some water and put it on a wound, if that was a possibility. Your mouth is filthy. Just be honest, especially if you're out foraging in the woods and you haven't brushed your teeth in 2 or 3 days because you're backpacking and you're lost and the zombies are trying to eat your brain. So, you know what I mean? So, definitely I'm going to have all these things in my garden and have all the books and knowledge and stuff like that. But be very careful. Yeah, I'm not a doctor. I would say 99.9% of the people on YouTube are probably not doctors either. Also, doctors are barely doctors either. Like, honestly, I got treated so badly during my infection and my surgery. I'd say there are just so many mistakes. People are people. There's going to be error. Have lots of resources. Get a second opinion. You know what I'm saying? Be diligent. Don't be stupid. So, and I don't know if cultivated yarrow has the same exact medicinal properties. Now, there's another plant I'm going to talk to you guys in a minute that fairly certain doesn't have the same medicinal properties as its wild relative. So this has been cultivated for prettiness. It's so pretty and dainty and lovely, you know, for the Victorians. So it's cultivated for its aesthetics, not for its medicinal properties. It doesn't mean that it doesn't have those medicinal properties, but it hasn't been cultivated for them. So the common yarrow has been used for centuries, if not millennia, for many different things. Do your own research. I'm not citing sources here on the use of yarrow, but nor does this talk about medicinal stuff other than that it is a medicinal. It doesn't tell you how to use it, when to use it, because this company is selling you a plant, not medical advice. Me too. Ditto. Since I mentioned that we're talking about medicinals and cultivated varieties, this is evening primrose. And you can see these at garden centers. They sell primroses. They're very lovely. And I often see them listed as annual. And that has not been my experience. That even the ones that I've bought from like Home Depot and Lowe's, they come up every year and they even spread for me, and I'm often like dividing them. So, but with common evening primrose, which is the kind I actually grew before the cultivated variety, they are very tall. They remind me a lot of mullein. They have medicinal properties. I have not used them medicinally. The common evening primrose, apparently the seeds are used for like oil. I do not know, but there's all kinds of uses for them, and they produce a ton of seeds. The common type does. They are yellow. They're not very showy. It looks kind of like a candle, like a long candelabra, with tons and tons of seeds. Seed saving from them is very easy, but it's hard to not get all of them. You'll probably have common evening primrose would be popping up in between like little cracks in your cement and everything. It's kind of a good problem to have. It's great for chop and drop. They're biennial. They first grow like a big, like a floor, it looks like a flower, like the leaves do. And then the second year they grow a big stalk and they produce a ton of seeds. So if you see them flowering and you don't want seeds everywhere, you could harvest them before they go to seed. I loved them. I thought they were really pretty. They take up a lot of space. I think I would plant them around the perimeter of my property, maybe on the edge line between trees and stuff where they're getting a lot of sunlight, but that they're not shading out or competing with some of my smaller flowers. You know, that's kind of one of the strategies that you do. Taller in the back and then shorter in the front. But when you're growing like I am, which is kind of like a food forest, I have lots of trees, so I'm always looking for, okay, taller, shorter, right? So these are pink primroses, and they're going to be a lot of fun to grow. They're perennial in this zone, which is zone 8, so zones 5 to 9. They are a native wildflower, but these have a nice fragrance, it says. I haven't gone around smelling my primroses. So this is exciting. So I will enjoy smelling these. I like to use my sniffer and sniff the beautiful flowers. So yes, cool. It says it'll easily overtake your garden. It can try. It has a lot of competition in my yard. It says perennial or biennial. Now, sometimes if it's a biennial with the small flowers, you might think it's a perennial because you'll still have flowers coming up in the same container all the time. Sometimes it is a perennial. Sometimes it's dropped seeds and it's just manifesting as if it's a perennial because its babies are popping up in the same places as the original plants, which is, I think, a good problem to have. It says cold stratify 2 to 4 weeks. Okay, or I don't know. I don't always follow the rules, you guys. I really don't. I might do it the right way, and then I might also try growing them. So if I was going to go last frost would be May 10th. So all of that time plus April plus, I think I would try planting some of them outside in March because then it will cold stratify itself naturally. That's not what they're recommending, but that's what I'm going to try probably because a lot of times I put stuff in the refrigerator to cold stratify and my family accidentally discards. So I showed you the Scarlet goji berries earlier. These are black goji berries and this is not the first time I bought them, but I need to get onto a seed rotation. And I also want diversity. So because I have waited a few years in between buying them, I'm going to have them from different batches, which means I'm going to have different parent plants involved in what these seeds are, where these seeds came from. It's going to be lots of different parent plants, which means when I plant them and I plant the other ones, I will have genetic diversity when they grow and they are pollinated. So, and then also I can select for the best varieties. So it's a superfood. As you know, there's way more to goji berry than what they talk about with the berries. We'll talk about that another time. I don't want to give away my plans, but I've got a lot planned for talking to you about the different perennials I have in my yard. I think I might have some goji berries in my yard, but I can't get to them because of all my hazelnut trees. I have like 14 hazelnut trees in the backyard, and then I've got a very large one in the front. So I've got at least 15, and they're blocking out some of the stuff I planted along the fence line. So if I can find the goji berry plant that I have back there, I'll show you someday. If not, I'll just have to plant some more from seeds. And I get a lot of satisfaction from growing perennials from seeds. So they have special planting directions here. You're soaking in warm water for 24 hours before planting. Add sand to the potting mix. So I'm probably going to be planting these. I'm going to probably do these next year. My plan will probably be spring. And I'll do more research because I don't think this is enough information for me. Especially with plants that I think are this special. So these are $6 seeds for 40 seeds. Whereas the other one had like 200 for 3. So, you know what I mean? Not all of these are priced the same. Nor should they be. Chocolate daisy. Okay, I'm sure it's not chocolate. It's probably because of the color of the inside of the flower. Now, I will tell you sunchokes. That I like to grow sunchokes and or Jerusalem artichokes. Those flowers have a very slight chocolate scent, very slight. By the way, if you try to grow those, you grow them from tubers, not from seed. And I find that it's on hot nights when I could smell them. On cooler days or just like in the daytime, I didn't really notice it smelling like chocolate at all. But on hot nights, kind of like with the ornamental laurels, they have a slight sweet jasmine fragrance on hot summer nights, right? So if you have that idea that in your mind of what you're expecting and then you don't have it happen for you, That's just what I'm going to say. Okay, guys. Okay. So this is Chocolate Daisy. This is a native wildflower with yellow blooms that smell of hot cocoa. I love that. And I think they spelled cocoa wrong. Am I wrong? Hot cocoa should be Cocoa or AO. Cocoa has an A in it, right? I don't know. I'm tired. It's a clumping perennial. I like that because a clumping perennial means I can divide it and make more plants. I love it. I love it. I love propagating. So this is going to be for mid-May, late May of 2027 is when I'm going to plant them. And I got how many seeds? It says 25 seeds. And that's for $3.25. The price isn't bad, but you're only getting 25 seeds. But it's a perennial, which means it comes back many years. It's clumping, which it's way easier to divide plants that are clumping than it is to just collect seeds, especially if you're a novice. But I'm sure you could probably collect seeds from the plant and also divide them. But I wouldn't divide them in the first couple of years. I always let them get whatever plants I'm starting that clump. I'm going to let them get established first before I start dividing. And I would let them at least have one big clump and a few smaller clumps as I pull them apart. I've been doing that with my canna. And I'm very happy with the results. So if you have other ideas about propagating plants that clump, have a clumping style to their habit, pop a comment below. If you have a preference in how you are dividing your clumping type of perennials, make a comment below. I like to have one big clump that I know is solid, and I will take off little clumps from it, but usually leave one bigger clump. That way I don't divide it too much and then lose everything. Sometimes people can get a little bit wild and aggressive with the dividing. So I like to have a nice clump. Anyway, that's what I like to do. I'm going to do both of these at the same time because they're both Lewisia. And one is Elise Rosy Pink and one is Elise Golden Yellow. And I fell in love with the name because my grandmother's name was Louise. And then I have a niece named Eloise, and I have a granddaughter with a middle name Elise. And I love the song Für Elise, which means F-U-R, Elise. That is a German song. Who was that? Was that by Schubert? I think it was by Schubert. If I'm wrong, Für Elise. Who was that by? Comment below if you know. These flowers, okay, now they remind me of plumeria. Okay, now it's not plumeria, and I am growing some plumeria, believe it or not, in Washington State in my window. It's not going so well. I'm sad. It's going okay, but I planted plumeria from seeds, and I've done it before. Had some, I won't try to blame anybody, but I had somebody who put them outside, and I said, don't put them outside, they're tropical plants, and then they died. So, yeah, I'm still going to keep planting plumeria because I love them, but they're houseplants for me here in Washington State. So this is, oh, that's funny, Lewisia Cotyledon. Cotyledon is the name of the baby leaves. So like dicots and monocots. So like a monocot is a baby leaf that has only one leaf, and a dicot is a baby leaf that has. So all of these plants today should be dicots, and I don't understand why the scientific name would be literally Cotyledon, but whatever. And then this one here, the pink one, same. That's interesting. Is that really true? Is that the real scientific name? Lewisia Cotyledon? Because that's a monocot and a dicot, one or two leafed baby leaves. Why would that be the scientific name? I don't know. Anyway, but I like both of them. I like the pink, but I kind of like the yellow better. Like, I really loved yellow and white plumeria, so maybe it's just that nostalgia. Which one do you like better? Do you like the Elise Rosy Pink or the yellow. Because I'm kind of like tied, kind of. The yellow caught my eye first because it reminds me of the plumeria in Hawaii. And I know they do come in multiple colors, but the ones I always saw were almost always the yellow and white. And this one's the pink and white. So the Elise Rosy Pink or the Elise Golden Yellow. Which one's prettier? Anyway, so this is going to be... Okay, it says... native to Western North America. That's nice to know. Maybe I won't have to fight so hard to make it live. Like I have to with the plumeria. It thrives in rocky soils and containers, bringing airy spring charm. Germination improves after a short week of fridge in a damp paper towel. Sow indoors 8 to 10 weeks before the last frost. Cold stratify for 2 weeks. Press lightly into soil. So you're not going to bury it, but you're going to use that strategy I told you earlier with like tapping it with your finger or misting it so that it like really gets into contact with the soil. Transplant carefully. Is it? I think it was an annual. I think it said it was an annual, but I don't know. It's frost hardy. Is it an annual? Am I missing it? It does not say. My eyes are getting blurry, you guys. If it's cold hardy. Okay, I just did a quick pause to look up some information, and I found it on epicgardening.com, and I love that guy's channel too. So, I think his name's Kevin from Epic Gardening, right? So on his website, it says that they are perennials and that they're named after Lewis and Clark, which is funny because I just bought like a pound of Clarkia, which is named after Clark, and this is Lewisia. So that's funny, and they're supposed to be perennial. So that's really exciting for me because I would love to be growing these in my garden and seed save and maybe eventually add them to my store if I get enough seeds, but I don't have enough seeds now to be able to justify that. 15 seeds for $4.50 is a lot of money for me, but I've wanted them for a long time, and to me there's nostalgia with the name, you know, like Louise, Lewis, and Elise. It's a kind of a family name, and then also I love the story of Lewis and Clark. So here are my 2 free seed packets I got, and I actually put in the order because they had, I'm pretty sure they had advertised that if you spent like at that certain time for the promotion, that if you spent like $35, I think, then this one was guaranteed that you get this one for free at the time. So that has since expired, I'm sorry, but keep an eye on their website because, and then subscribe to them because then you'll get the notifications when they're having deals. This was a free gift. See the sticker on there? So this is the hens and chickens, not to be confused with hens and chicks. So hens and chicks are succulents. These are called hens and chickens. I don't know how they're named. If you know how these poppies got their name, pop a comment below. But I love poppies. They're really beautiful. Most of them need to be cold stratified. Do these. Yep, direct sow in late fall or spring. So these I can actually plant for this year if I get around to it. I'll be honest with you guys, I got a lot of seeds. So I don't know if I'll get to it or not, but I could. That's an option. And if you didn't get this deal, you could still order them. They're the poppy hens and chickens. They're really beautiful. And then the other free variety I got, which was a surprise, but not so much of a surprise because I have gotten these before. It's called Landis Winter lettuce. And honestly, everybody should be growing their own lettuce, given the fact that of how many recalls they do almost every year. There's always some kind of farm that's gotten contaminated, or in the processing area when they're chopping up the lettuce. That's usually when it happens. You'll have like, there might be a little batch that had, some kind of E. coli or something. And then that when it gets chopped up and bagged, a university did a study on it. And all it takes is one head of lettuce and it can contaminate the entire batch. And you can't wash E. coli off your lettuce. So that's why it's so dangerous, because vegetables that you can cook it hot enough that it kills the E. coli. But you can't kill the E. coli on lettuce because people don't eat it cooked. They eat it raw. So no amount of washing is going to get rid of it. You could get E. coli from your own garden too. So it can happen at small farms. It can happen at big farms. It can happen in your backyard. It can happen anywhere. So it's all about like making sure that the foliage does not come into contact with E. coli, which would be often found in like cow manure. So what I like to do is I reserve my fancy pants, kind of growing medium for my lettuce and anything that I don't plan on actually cooking. Or I might do like, layers of different things. With my compost and stuff, I don't have like a lot of compost at the top of my soil. When I'm growing lettuce, I would bury it, and then might top it off with Miracle-Gro, which is not my favorite thing to do, but I do feel like it's pretty sanitary when it comes to like pathogens. Or I might do like Coco Coir as a top mulch kind of thing, so that, and then I might even do like how in the picture they show like straw. You can do that, and then when you're watering, it's not splashing that contaminants and pathogens onto the leaves. So those are just some sanitary kind of things too. So those are just some tips on keeping your leafy greens fresh and contaminant free. I have never gotten sick from eating lettuce before. Luckily, I wash my produce really well, but like I said, they did an experiment, a university did on, and I don't remember which one it was. If you remember, if you know what I'm talking about, pop a comment. But I want to say it was like UW or something really big, where they actually, and it's probably not UW now that I said it aloud and put myself out there, but it was a big experiment where they did bagged lettuce. The bag chopped up lettuce is the most dangerous because every single leaf could be contaminated, whereas a ball head of lettuce, maybe it's the outside leaves and you could rip those off and then wash the rest. So the loose leaf lettuce are great because you can take the outermost leaves and just keep cutting. It's a cut and come again. It's not even cutting, it's literally like ripping. Rip off the outer leaves and then you've got some more leaves to go. And lettuce is great because they will self-seed and you can gather seeds from your lettuce. Also, if you were to look up the experiments that they have been doing with lettuce, you would be shocked, and you really need to get your hands on heirloom lettuce seeds. I have been buying, that's how I got into the idea of having my own company. It didn't start off that way. I basically bought several pounds of lettuce seeds, and it was because I had read about this situation where they were trying to, who was they? A group of people were trying to, at a university, do an experiment where they would test, try to put, I don't want to like get myself kicked off of YouTube, but they would try to put a certain kind of medication that some people were all required to take back in 2020, and they would put it into different plants and basically see if they could get it to breed and continue to grow the medication. So multiple plant trials failed except for lettuce. So lettuce worked. Now the dosages is all very controversial, and the government in Tennessee said no, you can't do that here. So now they're doing it in California. So I just want to let you know that just like with the GMO stuff that happened with soy, which, by the way, it's very difficult to ensure that if you buy soybeans, even if they're touted as being heirloom, it's very likely that they're contaminated with GMO, even if it's not like 100% GMO. Most likely it's got GMO changes have been propagated into that line. So with the lettuce, it just takes a mistake. And obviously we've all seen that, you know, I'm a science teacher and I love science, but it's very, very, very difficult to isolate anything and to keep it from getting out. So mistakes happen. We're all human. We make mistakes. Just takes a little bit of a mistake in that you'll have those genes going into someone's backyard garden, and then to someone else's backyard garden, and then to wild varieties of wild lettuce, and then eventually, mark my words, almost all lettuce are going to be basically medicine that you may or may not want in a dosage that may or may not be appropriate for something that isn't really treatable in that manner. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. It's kind of incredible. If you can do your own research, and I very highly recommend that you do, on lettuce, it is not an old wives' tale. It's not a rumor. It's factual. They are trying to use lettuce to grow a vaccination, but in the lettuce. Now, I don't like getting poked with stuff. It's kind of a genius idea if we were God and we could control how things are propagated, how the wind blows, how the insects go from one plant to another, like all of the different variables. We can't control all those variables. So when people start messing with the genetics of lettuce, lettuce is so, oh, I don't know how to say it to you guys. It propagates so easily. When I planted black-seeded Simpson lettuce from a packet from the dollar store like 20 years ago, for like 10 years afterwards, I would have black-seed Simpson popping up all over my yard like a weed. It was beautiful and wonderful. Okay, that's a wonderful thing. What if you have an experiment gone wrong and you can't really get rid of it, and it starts spreading to your neighbors and their neighbors and their neighbors and their neighbors, and eventually it's going to get out of control and you will not be able to trust lettuce again. So if you grow your own lettuce and your neighbors aren't growing any, then you know that your seeds are going to be like very safe. So that's my whole thing, is my 2 bits, my spiel on the lettuce situation is, if you're not growing your own lettuce, get an heirloom variety, not a hybrid. Get an heirloom variety that you love, or a couple varieties, and grow them with gusto. And do what you can to keep it from crossing with other types, if that might be an issue. Anyway, be good, be sweet, go garden if you want to eat, and I will see you next time. My next video is Dollar Tree. They've got some cool stuff. See you later. Bye.